Hello and welcome everybody to the Motor1.com Test Car Happy Hour, and this week certainly the InsideEVs.com Test Car Happy Hour as well. I'm Seyth Miersma, Editor-in-Chief. Joining me today, we've got Brandon Turkus, Managing Editor of Motor1, who is in a hotel room in Germany and just a little bit tired, but gamely playing along. And for the second time on this podcast, Senior Editor at Inside EVs, Tom Moloughney, from his workshop and studio and General Pleasure Palace. Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here.
Guys, I'm excited. We teased this one up a little bit, and we've been working hard to make this episode happen. But Brandon and I have both had our first experiences. Oh, sorry. I'm about to have my first experience in the R1S. We've gone a little off schedule. Brandon has been in both Rivian products. Tom has been in both Rivian products and actually has some, is working on an awesome news story and video with the R1T. So this is kind of a Rivian super episode right now. So we're really excited to be able to chat through that. I know for a lot of you, maybe it's old hat. Tom, again, you've been talking about driving these vehicles for a year now. But it's all new and very exciting for us. So I just want to invite you guys in the audience, as ever, if you have any questions for us, if you have any comments, things that you want to know, please, by all means, no matter where you are, if you're on YouTube, watching this on Facebook or Twitter, you can leave us a comment wherever you are. We will get it and throw it up on the screen and do our best to answer it, or just scratch our heads in puzzlement, depending on what it is. But Tom, why don't we start with you, because you're working on a really cool piece right now. It's going to hit Inside EVs very soon with the R1T. So why don't you tell us what we're in store for, what the viewers can read about and watch in the next couple of days?
Yeah, so I'll have it up to probably tonight on Inside EVs. I did a winter range test with my R1T. I own a Rivian R1T. That's it in my garage, and I have my in-laws live in Vermont. It's 210 miles away. So that's always been like my measuring stick. Will my EV make it to my in-laws without me having to stop along the way? And you guys know I've been driving EVs a long time. That it could never, my EVs could never make it, through 10, 12 years ago. But now I have the Lightning and I have the R1T. I did this trip for Christmas in the Lightning. And now the Lightning, my Lightning has an EPA range rating of 320 miles per charge, and it's 211 miles. You figure, okay, it should make it no problem. Well, it will in the summer or in the spring or even in the fall. But in the dead of winter, when there's winds involved, there's also an elevation climb of more than 1,000 feet. So it's got everything. This trip has everything going against it. It's cold, it's windy, it's highway speeds, there's an elevation change. So it makes it challenging. And, that's me driving up in Vermont the last 15 miles or so. That's what the roads look like. So Lightning made it. When I did this with my F-150 Lightning, I arrived 211 miles driven with 3% state of charge and somewhere around 10 or 15 remaining miles of range. And I had a consumption rate of 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour. Now I average... in nice weather, I average like 2.3, 2.2, 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour, but this is the winter, as I said, under these trying conditions. And I had just put KO2 tires, BF Goodrich KO2 all-terrain tires on the Lightning. So now it didn't even have the road tires anymore. It had the KO2s, which add rolling resistance, Sure. But the Rivian I have is I ordered it with the all-terrain tires, not the road tires. So as you could see on that there, that it's got the Pirelli Scorpion all-terrain tires, and part of the reason why I put the KO2s on the Lightning when I did was because I wanted to do back-to-back range tests, and I wanted it to be fair. I couldn't have road tires on one and all-terrain on the other. So the Lightning made it. Now it was Rivian's turn. I just did it last week. And it was the conditions are nearly identical. I had 15-mile-an-hour winds coming in from the northwest, and I'm traveling north, so it's almost a headwind. So that's another contributing factor. We made it, and we made it. It beat the Lightning. We did 211 miles, and I arrived with 8% state of charge. So it beat the Lightning by a fair amount. Which is 5%. Is a good amount. It's comfortable to say that at highway speeds in the winter, the Rivian has a better lower aerodynamic drag, and it's a smaller CDA, and that plays a big role, especially with headwinds. So it's definitely a more efficient vehicle. I finished up with 1.83 or 1.85 miles per kilowatt hour, better than the 1.7 we got with the Lightning. But it made it, which is the good point for me. I know even in the worst conditions, well, worst is a relative term. It was in the 20s the whole trip, and when I arrived, it had just gotten down to like 18 or 19 degrees. So it's a little colder when I did the Lightning trip. When I did the Lightning trip, I left at 17 degrees and I arrived at 17 degrees. So it was a success as far as I'm concerned. The Rivian did well.
That's exciting to hear. Which was the one, Tom, on the same trip that you would prefer? Like if you're going to do it again, just purely for comfort, for amenities, like what's the better drive for that trip?
So for me, long drives it's a slam dunk for the Lightning.
Okay.
It's a more comfortable, quieter, more relaxing driving experience. The Rivian's like the sports car. You want to take that out and rip it for a while. But on long trips, it's not even close in my opinion. And the funny thing is that's my wife Meredith in the car with me as we're driving up. And when I told her we were taking the Rivian because I wanted to do the comparison range test, she just kind of went, we're taking the Rivian. Can't we take the Lightning? So that tells you a little bit about and she's not going to be driving at all. She's just going to be a passenger, so that tells you a little bit about the comfort and the whole experience. She much prefers the driving experience of the Lightning.
It's interesting. So I had obviously far less time. I had a little less than a week in the R1T. And then have driven the Lightning on a couple of occasions now too. This was the one that Brandon and I shared 2 weeks ago in Detroit. So a media unit from Rivian, launch edition, quad motor, big battery, all that stuff. I generally speaking, tremendously enjoyed the experience, was really excited to finally get behind the wheel of one of these. But I will say on another level, comfort level, if you're looking specifically against Lightning, there's just a lot more room. I mean, I didn't feel cramped at all in the Rivian cabin. Again, as a really tall, large person, it wasn't like it wasn't causing a negative experience. But if what I really want is the luxury of space to stretch out, especially if I've got kids in the back seat, the Ford just has a lot more space, right? That was one thing that surprised me maybe more than any other, not having, of course, I've seen them around. I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They've been running R1Ts around for a couple of years now. So I've seen them in parking lots. I've seen them driving around. But before you actually get in it and try and put your kids' car seats in it and sort of, live with it a little bit, you don't really get a sense of the size as much. And so the rear seat accommodation was considerably smaller than I expected it to be. Whether that's right or wrong in my mind's eye, it was probably going to be a little bit, just a little bit bigger. We could make it work, but Tom, I think we were chatting about this the week that I had it too. I think that it would be, for me right now, again, with a family of four with two small kids, as much as I like the vehicle, it would be a little difficult for me to use as a one-car solution, just in terms of the space. Even with the really clever packaging, you can see now that's with two forward-facing car seats back there, and the seats up probably, an inch a little bit further, or an inch further than I would want them to be. It wouldn't be the perfect solution for a family vehicle for me right now, despite all the stuff that I liked about it. So I will say though, I got into it, and it's rare for my wife to express kind of I'll ask her, I'll sort of prompt her for information, but this is definitely a vehicle where she got in it and she was like, oh wow, what is this? Right? The cabin is so well done. I think the fit and finish, the design of the interior is beautiful. It's a really nice space to live in, and they're obviously at a higher price point, but I do think that it's got it all over the Ford right now in this sort of EV truck landscape that we're living in, if you're going out to buy one today. Brandon, how about you? This was also your first time through. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd actually go a step further in regards to the interior. I think it's probably the best pickup truck interior on the market. And I don't think it's really close. Not just the fit and finish, but the sheer quality and diversity of materials. The plastics that were there were pretty well hidden. You've got that gorgeous slab of real wood. You've got little splashes of color here and there, like the orange speaker surrounds in the headrests. It is just generally a very, very nice cabin that feels luxurious in a way that even a high-end F-150 or Ram doesn't really. I was that's the thing that kind of blew me away the most, is just how good the interior of this thing is. Especially, I haven't been in a lot of Teslas, but I've been in enough to know that interior quality is typically a mixed bag. So to see Rivian kind of hitting it out of the park on its first go around is really saying something.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more premium than Tesla on the inside. All the materials are fantastic. I mean, down to the floor mats. You see the floor mats? I love the floor mats.
The floor mats were I got in. And I thought the floor mats were upside down, because occasionally, to keep them clean, they'll flip them over to the other side. I'm like, oh, well, that's stupid. Let me go flip. And I'm like, oh no, they're so cool. Yeah. They're so cool.
Exactly. And I love the Meridian sound system is awesome. It's the best stock sound system I've ever had on any vehicle I've ever owned. And it has the removable Bluetooth speaker. I don't know if you guys have played with that yet.
I found that, yeah.
Cool. It's so cool. You just, wherever you are, you've got a Bluetooth speaker. You pull it out, sit it down, and you've got music. So I know it kind of, from time to time, it sounds like I'm hating on the Rivian, because I talk a lot about my Lightning, and I'm really just blown away by what Ford did with the Lightning, to be honest with you. But, I love the Rivian. It's not like I don't like it at all. It's just there's some things about the Lightning that I think surprised me. I expected the Rivian to be just awesome, because they're a startup. They get it. They're a tech company. I knew the finishes were going to be beautiful. I knew it was going to be almost like a game changer. I didn't expect Ford to do as well as they did with the Lightning. And I think it still hasn't sunk in that they converted a gas. It's not even a ground up build, the Lightning, they kind of, converted a gas, but they really just nailed it with it. So, but I know today's Rivian day.
The other thing with the Rivian, and this was after crawling around it, I really admire that Rivian was willing to take so many like kind of off kilter chances.
Absolutely.
The gear tunnel is fantastic. I mean, it's no secret that I'm a golfer. I want to drive one of these to the golf course just to throw my clubs in the gear tunnel, because it is perfect for that. If I own one, they just live in there all the time. The removable Bluetooth speaker you mentioned is great. I love the power shutter on the for the tonneau cover. I think that's fantastic. It's just all of these little clever, bold solutions. And I really like that this is a kind of a right-sized pickup truck. It's not a huge half-ton truck, or it doesn't feel like one on the road. It's more manageable than a Lightning or a standard F-150 or a Ram 1500. It's easier to place. I think that Rivian really kind of nailed a sweet spot for trucks that is kind of underserved at the moment. The only thing I can think of that's really similar size is the Honda Ridgeline.
So real quick, you guys, we have a ton of comments, and thank you everybody for writing in. I want to go through some of these comments and questions quickly. Kyle, in the meantime, while you're doing it, I sent you a dumb photo. Everybody needs to take a picture of their kid in the gear tunnel when they have a R1T for the first time. So throw that up so that you can see Jack.
I don't have kids. Can I just steal one and just throw them in there and see what happens?
Totally. Yeah. Just go to the supermarket parking lot. First of all, I want to say hi to Gary Clark. Gary, thank you for joining us again. I'm going to save your question for a little bit later when we bring on when we start talking about the R1S as well, because I think that's a really interesting question that you've got there. I have not forgotten you. Manuel simply says that the R1T with all-season tires with 20 should be insane for range. As we're finding out with the all-season tires and in different conditions, the range is still pretty impressive in terms of real-world capability. There's Jack in the gear tunnel. He's got a pony because his hair is long. Hi to EKG Canadian Enthusiast, who is generally expressing positivity for the Rivian R1S and R1T, calling them class leaders and non-luxury. I don't think that I would call it a full-size SUV, but that's okay. I think I get what you're getting at. and overall, its issues are common issues that are the same with other EV trucks. Let's stop there for a second, because here's one of the issues that I had with the Rivian. So and with the R1T, because we're going to talk about them both. I was encouraged when I was given the loan of the car. I had all 4 of the keys, right? I had the key fob, I had the hard card, I guess it was 3, and then I had the app to be able to access it. And the guy at Rivian that I was speaking with was saying, owners use the app, you should download the app and use that. That's the best experience. And I've got to say, Tom, you own one, right? So you're the man to talk to here. The app was really intermittent in terms of working. Once I downloaded it, walking up to the truck, it would open the doors, I think, every time. It didn't ever let me start it. I could never drive with just my phone with the app in the pocket. I couldn't actually ever start the vehicle, despite it gives you the graphic to hold it up against the door card there. Tried to go out and come back in, lock it, unlock it, the sort of stuff that you would do if you're just, a dumb guy like me trying to figure out how to make it work. But ultimately, I had to go back in the house and get the key fob to come back out and start the car. Common experience, uncommon experience? Like, is that normal? Is this a flaw in their user interface?
Yeah, it's a problem. And
okay.
I can tell you, I had a problem with that. And the interesting thing is I've never experienced that. Okay. Every time my phone as a key works, I go in, it unlocks, it starts up, and I go. My wife, she's the second phone as a key, for the truck. With her, it's potluck. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It always opens the truck, as you said, but then sometimes it doesn't start up. And my wife works she works in New York City, and she's working from home now most of the time, but she still has to go in every now and then. She takes public transportation, the train from my house. It's long. It's like an hour and 45 minutes each way. So she gets up really early. She's at the train station at like 5:40, right, to get the first train heading to New York City. And 2 weeks ago, she's, and I'm dead asleep when she's gone. It's like I might wake up a little bit when she gets up and takes a shower, but that's it. I'm in bed. And she comes back in panicked. She's like, "Get up! Where's the key? Where's the Rivian key?" And I'm like, "Well, what's wrong?" She's like, "The damn thing won't turn on again for me. Like, it lets me in, but it won't turn on. And without the key fob, she can't drive to the train station." You know what I mean? So, and I had told her take the Rivian that day because I was going to do something with the Lightning. She'll always ask me what truck should I take. It's not that I can't swap at the train station. It's 3 miles from our house, but in any event, I just said take the Lightning. Just don't worry about it. And so she took the Lightning, and I swapped it during the day. But like, there's an instance. What if she was far from home? And couldn't turn the thing on, so it's a problem. And it's weird that it never happened for me. And I drive it way more than she does. I don't know if it has something to do with like secondary phones that get set up. Like, I'm sure you were like the 10th person that linked their phone to it. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but it's real.
The thing is, I've used phone as a key in products from other manufacturers, mostly Lincoln. They're real keen on it. I've never had any problems starting the car, but what'll have happen is I'll get in the car, start it back on my driveway, pull away, and like 15 feet from my house, it'll say, "There's no key in the car." And I'm always terrified that I'm going to continue on to my destination, and it's going to be, like Tom said, I'm stranded there. And it hasn't happened yet, but in general, I kind of have app fatigue. For a lot of things, not just automotive related. I strongly dislike the fact that there is no way to program preconditioning on the Rivian from in the car. You have to use the app. I'm overtired, but I don't mean to be blunt, but that's a boneheaded decision. I could not precondition the Rivian when I drove it. So I was, was getting, when I did my test route, I was getting about 1.2, 1.1 miles per kilowatt hour, because the car, needed to warm up. It was 30, 35 degrees. That's just I don't really understand the logic there. So yeah, I don't love the app focused approach, really.
I think that so two things about the app and the virtual key or the phone key, right? I will say this, like I've talked to a lot of people both on the manufacturer side and other journalists, and I think everybody does tend to agree, like it's just as likely, and in fact probably more likely, to be your phone. Not that your phone doesn't work, right? But there are two devices trying to talk to each other here, and so it's not always the fault of the vehicle, whether it's a Rivian or anybody else's key, right? Like it can also be your device. So there's a lot that can go wrong there. I would say that's a good reason to still maintain, and obviously they do, like whether it's the card that's in your wallet or the physical key. To me, that gives me a little reassurance. But certainly things can happen on both sides there too. I'm gonna quickly go on. I'm gonna combine a couple of these questions, guys, Tom, because this is, I think, another good one for you, having done the trip that you just did. So Bob White first asked, what do you do if you have an ice storm, you drive electric, and the ice storm causes widespread power outages? I think this is a very relevant topic right now because we've all had. I'm currently without power at my house. Like we've had this huge storm go through the Midwest now and moving onward. Plus weird weather in LA. We're just having a very weird couple of weeks of weather. And then from McMoo 587, I think these are related, says, would you hesitate to take a Rivian or any CCS vehicle on a road trip with 3 young kids and a wife? We have a Model 3 and a Telluride, and I want the R1S for Q3 delivery. Maybe he's getting one, but the charging network scares me, coming from a Tesla ownership. So those are two related things. I mean, these are kind of advanced math versions of range anxiety, for lack of a better term, right? So having done the trip that you just did and many more of these, Tom, what's your take on those?
Sure. So let me grab the range, the road trip question first.
Yeah.
I've been driving EVs for 13 years now, and I've taken, I don't know how many road trips. I can tell you, I have never, ever not been able to make my destination. Has there been hiccups? Yeah. Has there been times where I go to plug in, it doesn't work. I have to move to another station, it doesn't work. I have to call the network, and then they initiate it remotely and it works. And I was there an extra 20 minutes because I had to do that. Yes. Have there been times where I pulled up and the one charging station didn't work, so I had to pull out my app and say, okay, yeah, I can make this next one and go there. That's happened. But I have never had a failure. Like I'm stuck, I'm towed, I'm here with my family, I can't get somewhere. You do a little bit of research on the route and understand if it's possible to have backups. Now I live here in the Northeast. The networks, the charging infrastructure is a little bit more robust than, if you're commuting from Montana to Arizona, there's areas of the country where the infrastructure is terrible, where,
yep.
If that one station doesn't work,
Right.
you're on a flatbed. So it does depend. Now it's getting better all the time, but in my opinion, I would tell you, do not hesitate. You'll figure it out. And I know there's a lot of videos online of people screaming, "Oh, this doesn't work. It's horrible." Yes, the state of charging today leaves a lot to be desired. Tesla still has the best network, but I also think that in some instances it's getting blown out of proportion worse than what it is. And as I said, I've never been able to not get somewhere. And I would bet anybody. Right now, I could just hop in either my Lightning or my Rivian, and I could get there, and without too much hassle. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. Now we'll go. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Tom. No, don't carry on. Sorry,
now let's switch over to the ice storm question, which is a topical right now. Seyth had no power for a to while. Is it restored yet, or are you on a generator or what?
Still not. No, I'm on a generator.
You're in a very yellow room.
I have to. Yeah, I'm not at my house. I'm at my wife's office, and I've borrowed a generator from Honda, which is very kind of them. I'll have talk about that a little bit later, but no power. So quite topical.
I hope that doesn't mean we all have to write positive reviews about Honda vehicles now, Seyth.
Not at all. No.
That's not how it works. In case anybody was wondering, everybody accuses people of doing
folks.
favors, but we don't do that. Again, this goes to my depth of experience with electric vehicles. So you might remember Hurricane Sandy on the Northeast back in 2012. I was driving EVs at the time. I didn't have gas cars. The New York Times did a big article on me, and it's still up. You can search Tom Moloughney, Hurricane Sandy, New York Times, and it'll come up. And the title of it was, electric vehicle owner unfazed by storm. And you would say, well, how did you charge your vehicle? Well, the thing about when there's power outages, it's never like the entire state is out of power. There's grids. It's a complicated network of grids, and there's always a place where you can find your EV a place to charge your EV. Like, for instance, I had no power during Sandy for 16 days, but I do have a generator. So I was able to charge it from the generator. But my mom, who lives 15 miles from here, they had power the whole time. They were out for like one day. And I remember one day I went to her house and I plugged in and charged. There were DC fast charge stations that were in certain areas of the grid that still had power, where people would just go in there queuing up and getting their cars charged. And I remember all the gas stations, there were people standing with gas cans 3 blocks long, just trying to get 3 gallons of gas. To forget about your car. It was actually much better to have and Kinky Streets just said gas stations don't work without electricity, so the pumps weren't pumping. So it was actually much easier to live with an electric vehicle during a power outage than a gas vehicle. Even though I know people think that that's nuts, I found that my friends were borrowing my car. They had gas cars and they were parked because they couldn't get gas. So it's not as bad as you think. There's a lot of ways to get electricity. There's one way to get gas, and that's at that gas pump. But you could, go ahead, Brandon.
I think you make a really great point regarding the nature of power outages. The last time there was a huge sweeping, literally everybody was out of power, was that massive blackout in 2003. Mm-hmm. Typically when something like an ice storm happens, I live about half an hour, 45 minutes from Seyth. My wife has power at the house right now, but 4 blocks over, they don't have power. Our power network is kind of so screwy that there are always going to be pockets that have power. And if it does go out, it's a few days. And you make a great point about the nature of gas-powered cars having to line up and wait for fuel. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of a disingenuous argument anytime someone brings up, well, what if power goes out? It's Well, it's a real pocket case.
It's a disaster, right? Like everything is more difficult in a disaster. Yeah. Can you charge exactly the way that you prefer to during any kind of disaster? No. Can you fuel up your vehicle the same way? When I was getting gas for the generator that I had, right? The gas powered generator, I wasn't able to go to the gas station closest to my house because to the point that was just made by the Sage Kinky Streets, the gas station was out of power. So I had to go, another 10 blocks down the road. Yeah, it's a great point. It's never good. Those aren't great or scientific or normal testing conditions. So you can throw lots of real world situations at lots of different vehicles and have them fail in different ways. The idea is overall, are they robust enough to get through it eventually, right? And make it to the other side. So guys, I want to pivot quickly. This has been awesome. And thank you again, everybody, for the questions. But I'm going to go back to the first one that we had from Gary Clark, because I don't want to usually we go a half an hour. We're probably going to go a little bit long here, but I don't want to forget that we also wanted to talk a little bit about the R1S, right? So Gary Clark asked at the start of this, long wheelbase versus shorter wheelbase. Besides the on-road handling advantage of the R1T, does the R1S do anything that much better than the R1S to redeem it? I think he means that much better than the R1T to redeem itself. Second row seat recline, for instance. Brandon, you were in them just briefly. I think that you had a quick take on this before Thomas had a little bit more time.
Yeah, I wish I had spent more time with the R1S. I kind of picked it up, and then the next day there was an ice storm, and I flew to Germany. So I haven't spent a lot of time with it. I'm going to drive it when I get home tomorrow. But I was kind of shocked when I climbed in and was looking around. I haven't gotten in the back seats or anything like that. I haven't looked at the cargo area just yet. I was kind of amazed at just how similar everything felt. It looks like there's about the same amount of space. It seems like Rivian kind of, focused more on compact dimensions than increasing or changing the amount of space on hand. if it were my money, I think aesthetically and in terms of capability, I think I'm going to be a R1T buyer. But I certainly understand the appeal of the S if you just don't want a truck.
For sure. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for closed storage over open storage. I think R1T with the tonneau cover that's built in and automatic is splitting the difference in a way that's helpful to a lot of people. Also, you have the gear tunnel, so you have that lockable storage in there as well. I think they're doing their best with what you can with the truck form factor, but inherently, when you cover the entire thing in a body, you make it, in my mind, more flexible in terms of like the way that people mostly drive cars, which is for people and things that need to go inside. So I'm excited to get to take a look at it too. I'm a little disappointed to hear that there isn't that they've. It seems like they've sort of split the difference in terms of storage rather than second row space. Which again, going back to what I was saying before, was where I felt the T was a little bit lacking for a guy with a couple of kids. Is there anything else? What else does the S do that's fantastic that might be unexpected, Tom, in your test of it?
It was way more maneuverable off-road.
Oh wow!
Because of the shorter wheelbase.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Tight turns. And Rivian had a set up on a course, which, you know, all manufacturers set the driving course to the vehicle that you're reviewing, you know? So they had a lot of, yeah, exactly. They had a lot of tight turns when we did the off-road driving course. And, you know, and I'm driving and saying, there's no way the R1T could do this. You know, it's just, you know, I mean, that's why Jeeps are so cool off-roading, you know, they're so small vehicles, and you know that you could almost put them anywhere. And these, you know, really big, massive pickup trucks with lift kits, so people look at and say, "Oh, that's so it must be able to go anywhere." No, that can't go anywhere off-roading. It won't fit the width and everything. But the R1S was really maneuverable off-road. That was my biggest surprise. That 14 inches, right? I think the wheelbase is 14 inches shorter. That's a lot.
Yeah,
you know, that's not insignificant, and it makes a difference. You know, maneuverability.
And mind you, my sample size is pretty limited so far, but I think the ride quality in the SUV is better despite the shorter wheelbase. It certainly felt a little bit more composed to me, and in the brief time that I drove it.
Almost all the driving I did was off road with it, and I can't really comment comparing the, you know, on. Living with the R1T and driving it on road all the time, it would be hard. It wouldn't be fair for me to give one better than the other, because the drive we did was almost, for me at least, we took turns driving, and most of my drive was on the off-road section, because that's what I was more interested in. And my riding partner drove a lot on pavement. So
we'll come back to you, Gary, because I really anticipate. So I will say that at the, you know, on my own curiosity and on the advice of people who had driven it hard, I play around with the R1T in sport mode, and you know, sort of toggling between the suspension settings, driving along here on River Drive, which is one of the only curvy roads near Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I was really, really impressed. Actually, it's fun to put it to have it's set to sport mode with the soft settings, because I actually prefer the soft setup of the suspension a little bit more, even when I'm driving hard. I thought it felt really fluid. Brandon, I think you and I talked about this a little bit before. I kind of something that was strange to me is I enjoyed driving it more in a, like, as a sports car almost, than I did driving it in a straight line on the highway, right? Because we also had, there may have been an issue with the test unit that we have having a bad seal. So I don't really want to comment on that too much, because I wouldn't be super fair. But when I was driving it hard on the twisties, of course, it's incredibly quick. It's really fast. So that's just satisfying. It's not that it's rigid like a sports car. It does roll, but it rolls in a really progressive way. So you can learn it, you can understand what's happening, and it just was more communicative than I expected it to be for ultimately a big, heavy electric truck with a battery down low. So that was surprising and great from my point of view. And I'm excited to be able to A/B that with the SUV.
You know, what we need is an R1R that's just the truck, but slammed and with sticky tires. I think that'd be hilarious. Like, give us a Rivian street truck.
I'd just be curious to drive it because we also had the one on all-terrain tires. So driving it on anything that's more like even a performance-oriented all-season tire, more certainly an actual summer tire would be really amazing and help you get a lot of that power down. So, cool.
By the way, I have one of these on order. I'm supposed to get it towards the end of this year.
Are you going to get it in the same color? I love the green of your.
I really like it.
Do the green.
I wanted to get it different because, you know, you want to get a different color to have like a totally new vehicle, but I love the green so much. I think it's probably going to end up being the green.
It's
and
beautiful.
At that point, I'll sell, you know, one of the trucks that I have.
I have to say this too, like, and again, I'm a little bit surprised having seen all the Rivians around town for a while. It's another vehicle that people want to talk to you about, right? Tom, I'm sure you've seen this. Like when you, in parking lots, like I had, you know, everybody across all demographics, I had, you know, multiple touch points of people waving, or you could see them sort of craning their necks as you were driving by, or actively stopping you and asking what it was. One older woman told me that it was a beautiful truck. She didn't know what it was. She didn't care that it was electric, honestly. Like, I don't think she had any idea. She just thought the design was really nice. So we talked about that a little bit with the interior, but you've got to give Rivian props where they're due. I think that their designs are really beautiful. I would say they seem almost timeless to me. You could maybe make an argument that the face is a little, some people think it's maybe a little too cartoonish with the LED sort of eyes. I think it's really great, and I think it'll be a standout design for a lot of time to come. So, all right, we've gone a little bit over here. Kyle had a good idea, and there's a question back here. Kyle, maybe you can find it about the Amazon delivery vehicle. This is pivoting away from Rivian too, but Tom, you tell us about the experience that you just had in the Amazon van.
Yeah, so I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. I pulled into, I used to own this commercial shopping center in Montclair. I sold it just earlier last year. But whenever I'm in the area, I always stop by because I know all the employees that work there. I say hi to everybody. And I pull in with my Rivian R1T, park in the parking lot. I go in one of the places, a coffee place. I go get a cup of coffee. I walk out, and there's a Rivian delivery van parked right next to my R1T. So, of course, I'm taking pictures. I did a quick 1-minute short video for my YouTube channel. And then the driver comes out, and I'm asking him, I'm like, do you mind if I go inside? He's like, yeah, knock yourself out. I went in. I sat in the driver's seat. I was checking the whole thing out. I was looking at the center of the screen. Yeah, that's me in the driver's seat. And really cool, comfortable, you know, just an overall really nice experience. And sitting in that driver's seat, you could so tell it's a Rivian. Like, even though everything's different, the design language, the bits are all Rivian. Nothing's exactly the same as in my truck, but you can tell that, you know, it's all coming from the same minds. And it was cool. It was really good. Driver loved it. Said he thinks it's.
We lost you.
You
broke up a little bit there. Yeah, sorry. Maybe, I don't know if it was me or you. You broke up just a little bit at the end. I love the photo, and I love the idea that sort of no matter where you go, Tom, EVs are finding you now, which is appropriate. But Kyle threw up Rocky Jackson, who's had a couple of comments here. I don't think that Rocky is the biggest EV enthusiast. Says that they're creepy as they go down the street. I see them every day.
You think that's creepy, Rocky? Wait till he sees the new car. You think the Rivian van's creepy? Wait till you see the thing that's the U.S. mail car thing.
Oh yeah.
You see what that looks like with the weird, funky looking hood.
really odd. I'm just happy that you got a chance to go in one too. Maybe we'll work on contacting Amazon so we can do a driving review of one of those too. I would love a range test of the.
That'd be.
They had them when I went to pick up the R1S. I went to Rivian's Plymouth, Michigan design office to swap out the truck for the SUV, and they had a few of those sitting around. That was the first time I've seen them in person.
Yeah,
they're actually really. I find them really attractive. I think they're really great looking vehicles.
They certainly look purpose built. I think it'd be cool. Let's see whether or not, if anybody out there has a great contact at Amazon, let us know. We'll try and hook Tom up with a Rivian Amazon van.
Tom will volunteer to come and work a shift at your business. And
absolutely, I'll do a ride along. That would be cool.
Yeah,
a day ride along.
Hustling Amazon packages.
I love it. All right. Well, listen, you guys, we talked about it a little bit. Please go later today, tomorrow, to InsideEVs.com to read Tom's range cold weather range test of the Rivian. I haven't seen this one yet either, so I'm excited to read that as well. Brandon, you're in Germany now. You're there with Hyundai. We don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but you were there shooting a video with the new Hyundai Kona. You were also on a top secret mission somewhere in Asia before that too. So you've got fantastic content coming as well for both Motor1.com and Inside EVs. So your byline will appear over there. And then you guys aren't going to read anything. Oh, well, yeah, I've got something coming out, but it's it's on a completely different topic. So we'll save that for another podcast. You guys, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks everybody for writing in for comments and questions. We have a ton of them out there. I apologize for not getting to everybody's today, but we're running over, and I will make sure as best I'm able to go through and answer some of those on YouTube as well. So if you're seeing this after the fact, or if we didn't get to you, hopefully we can get you an answer to some of your questions a little bit later on. We are going to be moving this podcast to start in March. I think we're going to be moving it to Thursdays to a time yet to be determined. And we're going to put it on your favorite audio streaming platform. So it's not just going to be live, but you guys can catch it later too. We love podcasts here. You can always find Tom Moloughney on Friday mornings on the Inside EVs podcast live. Really encourage you guys to subscribe to the Inside EVs YouTube channel to see that. Or to listen to that on your favorite audio streaming platforms as well. And hell, I'll just throw up the other one too. If you guys like other general car stuff, the Motor One Rambling About Cars podcast, which comes out on Fridays, is another one great one to subscribe to and download. Podcast. Did I say them all? Did I get them all?
I think you got all of them.
All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.